Hello, happy Tuesday. Welcome to another episode of Dear Work Wives. I'm Adrienne,
And I'm Emily.
and what's going on for you?
I'm not feeling great today, so if I sound weird, that's why my throat's bothering me. So,
I missed most of that because you froze, but all I heard was that your throat's bothering you.
yeah, I'm not feeling 100%, but
Uh, you
that's
kind of don't
life.
sound 100%.
No, yeah, I don't feel great. So, it is what it is. But, other than that, doing great. It's sunny, spring is in the air. I got to see the solar eclipse. So, life is good. I'm just not feeling 100%. I have tea today.
Yeah, your voice sounds like your throat is swollen or something.
Yeah, it feels like it's
Is it?
swollen too.
Okay. That would be accurate then.
Yeah. How are
Well,
you?
that's a bummer. I'm not sick, so that's always a plus. I have been trying to shift my workout routine and I'm like focused on going to the gym 3 days in the morning. And today was one of my gym days. I tried this like step class. When I tell you that I was absolutely the worst person in that class.
You must have hated every second of it.
I just, that's an interesting. I didn't mind. There was other people that were also not good, so that helped
Okay.
my mindset. Like it
Yeah.
was my first time, and there was also a lot of other people that it was their first time. Well, not a lot of, but like five others that it was their first time. But I was just like, okay, even if you're not like getting the choreography, just like keep moving. Just do something,
Yeah.
And I actually got a really good workout. I burned like way more calories than I normally do because it was very high cardio.
Right.
Um, but the win was going, and now that you've acknowledged it, trying something new that I wasn't sure I was going to be good at, and I actually was not good at, but that's okay
Yeah.
because
Because you had a good
no
time.
one else cares, right? Like no one in the class is judging me for not being good, just like I was not judging other people for not being good. I was just like,
Yeah. You
doing my
achieved
best here.
you achieved the greater goal, which was attending the class.
Attending the class. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So that was a win, and TBD if I'll go back to that particular. The thing is, I like going to classes in the morning so that I don't have to like think.
Right.
But that's the only one on Wednesdays at 6 is like you're
Yeah.
either going to body step or you're not,
Yeah.
So I think I might just be going. Maybe I'm gonna get better, or maybe I'm just gonna keep
Have
doing
fun.
my own thing. Yeah.
Maybe you're just gonna have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like dancing with some squats,
Yeah. I went to the gym
I
last week with some friends. They have memberships and I went as a guest and I did
Yeah.
not want to go, but I actually had a really good time and I hit a new
And
personal best. So
you lifted a lot of weight.
and I think that would be, I don't want to go to classes. I want to just like lift heavier weights. So that would be what
Yeah.
I would consider going to a gym for because I don't
Yes.
have the finances to invest in the home equipment required to squat 135 pounds. So,
Great.
or nor do I want that to be in my home. The
Same.
Peloton and the
Yeah.
few hand weights I have is like the extent of my home gym. And I'm happy with that,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Same. I'm maxed out. So that's how I am. I went to the gym this morning and that was good. And then I did my hair. So, 2 wins already this morning, I
big
feel.
wins, big wins. Yeah. I saw Sandy yesterday from Team Run Like Clockwork. We had breakfast. That was
That's
really
so
nice. We're all remote team, and she came to my neck of the woods to see the eclipse. So we met for breakfast, and I took her to a really funky like breakfast spot. And she loved it, and it was really nice to see her. And then she brought me 4 containers of Grillo's pickles because I love them, and you can't get them here, and 2 Costco-sized bags of dots. So,
Oh my gosh, what a
yeah,
treat. So did she fly or drive?
she flew to like the border and then drove across the border.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because I was like,
because they wanted to explore
obvious.
the area
So she must have bought those pickles
in
in
Detroit. Yeah.
in Detroit and then drove them across.
Yeah. You can't fly with pickles and brine. It's liquid.
Right. That's what I was like. How did
Yeah.
she get these there?
No, she drove because she's a sweetheart.
Yes. Well, that's amazing.
But now I
And
can't eat the pickles though because I ate one and it like burned my throat. And I was like, oh, I got to wait till I'm feeling better to eat these pickles.
Yeah.
It's too much.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
Bummer. When did you get this sickness?
I'd say yesterday, starting about 1:00. Yeah. So.
Does anyone in your family have this or just you?
It's just me.
Well,
Just me.
a bummer.
I don't think it's the contagious sort. I think it's the anxiety, acid reflux sort.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yuck.
Yeah, like my throat is literally burned from acid reflux. So,
Oh.
yeah. It's lovely.
Yikes.
Yeah. I just posted
that's
something in
no
my
fun.
stories about I have PMDD, which is anxiety related to your cycle, and last week was my like week and it was a rough one. So this is one of the side effects. If you have GI issues, this is part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wishing you a stress-free day to hopefully let your body calm down a little.
Yeah.
How long will it take to go away, you think?
This is probably one of the most like physical reactions I've had in a really long time. So I'm hoping that it will
A couple days.
couple days, you know what I mean, to chill out a little bit. So
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and my gosh, on another note, I saw Noah Khan last weekend, which was incredible. So this is what I would expect to sound like after seeing Noah Khan, but I screamed the entire concert, and he brought out Shawn Mendes at the show. So when they sang Stick Season together, so it was really lovely.
That is lovely.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you got to do that.
I have a really big concert year this year, so I'm like just really leaning into concert as therapy, live music as therapy this year.
Where else are you going? I know you're going to Taylor.
I'm going to Taylor. I'm going to see The Beaches, Vampire Weekend, Kings of Leon, and Casey Musgraves.
Oh my gosh. You got a lot. I love Casey Musgraves.
Me too. And she was on my bucket list of if she, like, I had already put a lid on my concert spending. And then she announced the tour, and she's on my list of like, if she comes, it's a go. So no matter what. So yeah. So I'm excited.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about work stuff?
Sure, I guess that we have to. Like not our work stuff, right? Like other people's work stuff.
I mean, whatever you want to talk about, but I was planning to talk about other people's work
let's
stuff.
talk about other people's work stuff, yeah.
Unless you want to talk about ours and have it be a therapy session for everyone.
No, I'm good.
Okay. So you shared this article with me that I thought we would kick things off with.
Perfect.
And then most of our articles are like, not articles, most of our stories today are work plus family related in some way.
Okay. I love the theme.
Okay. You love a good theme, right? Okay. So the article is on Fast Company. We can link it in the show notes.
Yeah.
It was from a new study by Headspace, which is like meditation app. And the title of the article is Gen X marriages are crumbling because of workplace stress. And some of the statistics in here, so they studied a group of, I think, 2,000 workers along with 250 HR leaders and over 200 CEOs about their emotional and physical health at work. And so this is some of the stats that came out of that study. One of them is that work stress doesn't end at work. Well, who would have thought, you know?
Shocking.
Like, what does everyone do as soon as they get home to their spouse, significant other, friends?
Put it in
whatever.
A box. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, well, typically what I do is like vent to my partner about all the work stress immediately, you know? And he does the same thing now.
Yeah.
It's like, you know,
yeah.
I think that's pretty normal. And so it's not even like, of course it carries through because there's probably things you're still thinking about that maybe you have to deal with tomorrow or the next day or whatever.
Yeah.
But it says, according to the report, 77% of respondents said that work stress negatively impacted their physical health, and 75% said it caused them to gain weight.
100%.
So, yeah, especially I think that with like more desk work, I'm sure that contributes to a lot of it too. But then if you're stressed, then that increases your cortisol, and then if you increase your cortisol, your body holds on to stress. So to weight. So of course.
Also, just more remote work means we're literally not moving our bodies. Like, I don't want to commute to work, but commuting to work does require moving your body a little bit more.
Or even like being in an office. I know that I walked around the office a lot more than I walk around my house. You
like leave your desk at lunch, so you like go for a walk, or whereas I don't do that now.
Yeah, or you like at this desk all day. Your coworker's office to like chat about something, or just take a lap to see who's at the water cooler, and and then you walk back or whatever. Also, sometimes the bathrooms are much farther. Like literally, my bathroom is like right here. I don't have to walk very far at all if I need to do that. My kitchen is
7 steps
right
for me. Yeah.
So that's something that we have to be more proactive about as remote workers. I know that I need to do better at that. Like yesterday, I was actually like doing some content development work, and I had only intended, like, our nanny got here at 9:30, and I was like, oh, let me do one quick thing for the team, and then I'm going to get up and go like get myself ready, do my hair, makeup, etc. And then it was like 12:30 by the next time. I hadn't peed, I hadn't taken a sip of water. I was like, what is wrong with me? I was like, this is not okay. So I need to get better, especially when I'm in like a flow state, like of doing content work or something, that like I do lose track of time. So that was not even, that was not necessarily stressful, but it's probably stressful on my body, like,
but also being in those states is so important. It's like sometimes you just have to ride it out. It's like you have to ride the wave.
That's true.
Because it will dry up, and then you're gonna be like, oh no.
Yes.
But yes, to the larger point, yes, you should be getting up and walking around and all that.
Moving and drinking more water and all those things. Okay, next one is work stress hurts our relationships. So it says a whopping 71% of people said work stress ended their relationship. And Gen X employees, Gen X is older than millennials, right? So they're like...
Yes, the generation between us and our parents.
Okay, so not boomers, not millennials, but the one sandwiched in the middle. That's who Gen X is. So Gen X employees were more likely, 79%, than any other generation to report that work stress has led to a breakup or a divorce. That's almost 80% of Gen X.
Gen X is Gen Z's parents.
Yeah.
And so when you think about Gen Z and how hard they buck the system.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Makes sense. Yeah, they're like, my parents
were miserable.
I don't even know them, right? Or they're miserable.
Yeah.
So yes, makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's a lot of divorces, breakups.
Because Gen X is also the forgotten generation, because everybody talks about the millennials and the boomers, and Gen X just kind of gets left in the middle there.
Yeah.
And then now we all talk about Gen Z because they're so loud and fresh in the best way. I love Gen Z. I think they're amazing. I want them to think I'm cool. Actually, the girls that I took to the concert did think I was cool.
Oh yeah,
I went with a friend and her teenage daughters, and they thought I was cool. So
that's awesome. That's such a win for the week.
It's such a win. I made friendship bracelets, and they were like, "Oh my god, it was great."
Okay, so this is so random, but you made me think of it. I was at Trader Joe's the other day, grocery store, with Kit. I brought Kit with me, and
bold.
I know, it was like during nap time, so it was like I had to get it done, and so I brought her with me. And I was standing in the line, and she goes, "Well, are you trying to be cool?" And I was like, "No, do you think I'm cool?" She was like, "Are you trying to be cool?"
Wow.
No, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing that projects that I'm trying to be cool? I was literally just like standing in the line. I don't know if it was
Wow.
like
She
what
came
I'm
for you.
wearing, or I know. She's 4. I'm gonna be
She read you like a
slaughtered.
book.
I know. I'll be slaughtered when she's a teenager. She'll be
Yeah.
like, so there's that. Okay, next stat was related to our personal lives. So it said, meanwhile, 37% of employees say work stress has caused a mental health challenge, such as suicidal ideation or substance abuse. That's a big number for that, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, I guess they're really lumping. Well, no, they're not. Well, are they? That's questionable because they say like a mental health challenge such as suicidal ideation or substance abuse. So are we saying those are the only two we're talking about? Because those are pretty extreme ones versus
Right.
are we saying a mental health challenge like anxiety or depression, which I'm
Yeah.
not minimizing
No,
those,
no, but
but
it's just like if 37% of people I don't think have turned to substance. I do think that 37% of people have had I think I wish they had said like substance or anxiety. You know what I mean? I think that they're lumping
yeah.
every single thing into one and they picked the most salacious for the headline.
Yeah, they picked the two that are going to be
Yeah.
the most salacious. So I was like,
Yeah.
at first when I read that statistic, I'm like, oh my God. But then if I read into the wording a little bit more,
Yeah.
then it makes total sense. Like that number seems realistic.
Yeah.
Okay. A positive one, it said work can be a force for good. Over half of respondents said work had positively impacted their life by finding a community of like-minded people, while 48% said it improved their confidence and 44% said it helped them feel less lonely. So that's good.
Yeah.
Mainly being in community is the benefit, but also
Confidence.
increasing your confidence versus just,
Yeah.
I guess, what's the alternative? Sitting at home and doing nothing?
Yeah.
Because we're not saying anything about work stress improving your confidence,
Yeah. No,
you know?
no.
Okay, managers can hurt. So 97% of employees said that their mental health well-being had been negatively impacted by their manager in the past year. That's pretty much everyone.
That's
Like
everyone.
97%.
Yeah.
That's a hard one to hear, you know?
Yeah, I can, and even as on a team who is a leader on a team, who has an incredible leader on the team, like I think that that would be lying if it wasn't so high.
True.
You know what I mean?
Like,
That's
of
just real
course.
life. My husband
Yeah.
has had a negative impact on my mental health over the last year, but he's the best thing that's ever happened to me. You know,
Yeah.
I love him more than anything in the world. I would
Yeah.
choose him again every single day, and he still has a negative impact on my mental health sometimes.
Yes. Very, very true. So,
Yeah,
good way to reframe that so that
yeah,
we're not like beating ourselves up
yeah.
or beating other people up, right?
It's usually because you care.
Yes. Um, Nearly 60% of employees reported that managers had a positive impact on them by being flexible about projects or scheduling when they had personal issues, while
Totally.
48% of employees say they've turned to a manager for mental health support. Only 24% of managers are required to take mental health training in the workspace.
Mm.
So, um,
So everyone should be required to take mental health training, or the company should have access to something. If you don't want to train your team members, like provide a service,
right.
whether that's a
I
health spending
think the,
account or something like that, you know?
yeah, yeah. Because I mean, even for like the little things that as a manager you handle or people communicate with you, it would be beneficial to have some sort of training on how to, be empathetic or
Yeah.
respond to those things in an appropriate way, or when to send them to the, you know, therapy resource or the, mental health resource versus when can you handle something on your own.
Right.
So, but being flexible with projects and scheduling when they had personal issues, that was a big plus.
Yeah, that's
So
huge.
that's
As
good.
somebody who has it and lives with somebody who doesn't, it makes a big difference.
Mhm. Yeah. So that was an interesting article. Interesting, title that they selected from all those stats. Of course, the most salacious, but it was also an interesting connection to the Gen Zs that you made. And
Can I ask you a
we
question
will
that
link.
you maybe don't want to be answer, but that's okay. And if you don't, you can just say pass. How
Uh-huh.
many of your friends or acquaintances are actually divorced? Because we're coming up to the age where the divorces theoretically would start happening.
Okay. So like in my closer like
Just
circle of
like,
friends that I can
yeah,
like think of off the top of my head,
yeah.
one. But here's why I think that number is skewed. A lot of my friends also aren't even yet married.
Okay.
So I have a few friends actually getting married this year. They're my age, I have a couple other friends from college that are still not married.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a shift from
Yeah.
Gen X to millennials, is that a lot of us have chosen to either get married much later in life or not get married at all
Yeah.
or prioritize other things over
Like our career.
marriage. And so maybe it's like, yeah, like a career or
Your career can't
independence
ruin your
or
relationship if you don't have one,
that's right. That's right.
which is great.
So that's like my
Caveat.
theory about why I don't have like a ton of divorced friends is
Yeah.
like we all kind of got married fairly late. Like, I mean, even myself, like I got married, I think at 30. That's fairly late, probably compared to
I
Gen
feel like that's
Xers.
like, oh yeah, compared to Gen Xers for sure. I hope my kid, yeah, I hope my kids wait. Not that I have any issues because I didn't, like, I have a great marriage, but I was 24.
Yeah, I think that like, I don't know if this is something
But
that
my
was just
husband
told
was
to me.
30. So,
Yeah, I don't know if this is like something that was told. I know that like Tyler's great aunt, she was like, she told him at some point in his life, like to wait until you're like 30, which is funny because she's like almost 90. So
yeah,
she should have like more old school values, but she was like, you don't really even know who you are
yeah,
until like
yeah,
late 20s, 30s.
yeah,
Um, so I think a lot of millennials are doing that, which is maybe why they're not
yeah.
divorced as frequently. Do you have a lot of divorced friends? You can also pass.
No, I know of one couple of I'd say like of the 22, three, once I open it up a little bit more. Three couples out of like 30 that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah. What about like parents of like your friends? What would you say that?
Most of the parents of my friends are still together.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Like, and that's
I'm
just the
trying to
people
think.
that come to mind, like right off the top. Maybe not most. I'd say 70%.
Okay. I'm thinking maybe mine's closer to 50, but that's also like I have a skewed perspective from like my immediate family and like my sister-in-law, my husband, like
Yeah.
all of our parents are divorced
Yeah.
sometimes multiple times. So like my immediate circle, like no one's married,
Yeah.
no one can stay in a relationship. And so I think I am like a little bit skewed because then when I think about like my best friends from college and their parents, actually a lot of their parents are still together.
Right.
I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I
Yeah.
assume that everyone's divorced, but that's not true.
I definitely have some groups where
There's more than others.
their parents are all divorced and maybe more people in that group have gone through a divorce. And then I have other groups of friends where the parents are still together and they're still together. And I
Hmm.
don't know if that correlates at all. This is a completely neutral observation. It's just something I've never thought of. But as we talked about this article of like how work impacts our relationships, like our parents are boomers and like we're raised more of the like stay together at all costs, you know what I mean? Like we're raised
Hmm.
with really traditional values. And I don't know, I just think it's interesting to track these like through the generations.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some data on this,
Yeah.
right? Like this has to be studied. You know what else it was making me think of this morning? Like, just I was thinking about burnout because I feel like, as I was reading about like mental health and all of that, like I feel like burnout has become more and more common, or at least like more and more talked about.
Discussed.
And
Yep.
I was thinking, I was like, well, burnout could also be like not just attributed to our work and like what we're doing during the day, although that definitely probably contributes a lot to it,
Hmm.
or like not being I read this quote of someone. It was like, it's less about like how much work you're doing and more about like the feelings you're having while
Totally.
you're doing your work, right?
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily like a quantity problem. It's more of like, do you hate what you're doing? And then you're probably going to burn out faster.
Yeah.
Um, but also just like in this day and age in 2024, like when we're not working, we're also like constantly on our phones or like engaged in like, fast paced
Yeah.
things or information, or I just like there, I'm sure there's already like conversations about this, but it hit me this morning that like, well, no wonder we're like burning out so much faster. It's not even just like attributing burnout to work. It's like, oh, actually burnout probably is happening even faster because of the pace in which we're expected to live our
Our lives.
whole lives
Hmm.
and the way that technology now impacts our lives, which 40 years ago or even 20 years ago, like when you were
Yeah.
done with work, you weren't sitting on your phone, like you were
Yeah.
doing something in the real world,
Hmm.
which allowed maybe your brain to like
Yeah.
decompress more, which we're not doing. This is probably totally obvious to most people, and I don't know why I'm just like having a thought about it.
I think it's also like the sheer volume of information that comes at us. Like
Yeah.
it's too much for us to process. And
Yes.
then there's all the studies around how now we're missing, like humans are supposed to, like, are historically have three places where they feel safe: home, work, and then that third place. Maybe it's the pub, maybe like it's like, in certain cultures it's the local whatever, like, but a lot of
Or
humans
like a
don't have that
church for
third place
people.
anymore, so they just
Yeah.
have home and work. And the third place often served to fill that gap and like keep you grounded in reality, and keep you out of your own head as much. And like for me personally, because I went through burnout, um, and working at an incredibly supportive company, like it didn't make sense why I was experiencing burnout or how I got there. Um,
Mhm.
and I think there's obviously, I'm not a doctor, I don't know the science behind it, but I can speak personally that like I think I'm prone to it because I get stuck in my head very easily. And without being able, like, and I wasn't prioritizing touching grass enough. So like I just, once I had like an inkling that it was happening, I just kept digging deeper into it because my head told me the only way to like, it's just, well, if you just hit your goals, if you just perform better, then you can relax at work. But not hitting
No.
the goals because of a pandemic or whatever, plus somebody who's already like anxious and in their head, is definitely a
Mhm.
recipe for burnout, even in the most supportive work environments,
Yeah, yeah.
Even
Yes.
when I was like, I need to take time off for burnout, then it was during the pandemic. And then my kids' school closed again. And I said, psych, I'm going to come back to work instead of. And now looking back, I'm like, why didn't I just take the time that I had already arranged? Because it
Right.
wasn't going to be productive time. It wasn't going to be time I could cure my burnout anymore. So it was not worth taking.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point of like maybe, and we don't know this to be true. Like it's all
This is
hypothetical
us
now
just
at this
like
point.
chit chatting. Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe you needed another place, because like our three places,
Yeah. I
and
had
so
no,
like maybe
at that
you
time too, there was
isolated.
no place.
There was no place, and then you're just trapped at home with your children. Like maybe there was a mental health component of like work might be, something that fuels my self in some other
Yeah.
way. Maybe not, like maybe it wasn't the healthiest choice, but just giving yourself some grace for like maybe you needed another place at the time,
Oh yeah, my thought
or
process was like, I'm supposed to have this time off to like rest and recover and like
not
find a new
resting.
balance.
So
And now my kids will be home doing virtual school. So I'm going back to work because I
yeah.
already had like too much guilt about not working to then not be getting what I needed out of the time that I asked for. So I was like, well, I guess I'll just go back to work then, you know?
Man, I don't know. I don't know the answer to this, but it's
Interesting
just something for people
conversation.
to think about, right? Like
Yeah.
if
Because
they're
like my
feeling
husband
that
works the
way
type
in
of
their current
job
work.
where you just show up, he does his job, he's very engaged while he's doing his job. And then when he signs out, he's done.
You don't
Like,
have to think about it.
and not to say that he's not empathetic, he completely understood, but like that is not a part of his, the expectations are different. The like ability to disconnect from work was great. He's mentally a lot stronger than I am. So he's just like here to live. He's just happy and he doesn't stress or have anxiety like I do. So he already is
Like happy to
predisposed to
exist.
not get as much burnout, but he also works in an environment that doesn't foster it. It's like come into your work, answer your client calls until 5 p.m. and then don't answer your phone. Like end of day, you know?
Yeah.
So
Have you ever had a job like that where like you could shut it off when you left?
no.
What about like in the hospitality world?
I worked at very high
No.
level places, so it was
So you were still like
I was like
thinking and prepping
clamoring
and
to climb the ladder, you know what I mean? And it
Mhm.
was super high stress. And I
Yeah.
lived in a small town, so you knew everyone and everyone knew you. There was no escape.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's like when I was at camp, like you live there and
Yeah.
you work there.
And you
So
slept with everyone
you
and like
sleep there
yeah,
and you eat there and
fraternized with
you
all the same people. It was
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's do some stories. They're also family
Sorry.
or home life
Okay.
related, right? Personal life related. So, do I tell my new job that my mom died? First of all, I'm sorry your mom died.
Yeah.
My mom just died and I literally just started a job last week. I don't want any time off or anything because I won't be able to go back home anyway, but I'm worried that because I'm sad that I may look disengaged or distracted. It's a remote job where I need to be on camera. I'm fully committed to this job and I'm really I'm trying really hard. Sorry, dyslexia. I don't actually have dyslexia, but trying really hard to retain everything, and I feel good about that. But I kind of have some anxiety about this because um, people from my most previous job fired me because I wasn't passionate enough. But I'm just autistic and I don't say good morning to people. So that's an interesting sidebar, right? So I guess my question is, do I tell my new employer that my mom died and that I may be a little sad for a few days, but I'm still here, or do I just keep my mouth shut? Well, there's a lot to unpack there, huh?
Wow. Okay. Well, I wish that you worked for our company because if you said your mom died and you couldn't afford to go home, I would be sending you home for that. Like, that's so sad. And
Yeah, I don't know why they're not. They didn't mention why they're not going back home, but yeah,
but
they're
still,
not going
regardless,
back
that's just an
home.
aside. I would probably tell them, but I'm kind of an open book. So,
I would probably tell them just because of your anxiety or worry about looking disengaged, right? Like you don't want to look disengaged, but you have something very big going on personally. I also think that even if for some reason you can't make it home, which maybe you want to try to make that a priority, maybe you're worried that you shouldn't take days off because you just started, but like this is something outside of your control and I think any good employer would understand that, right? So I would advocate for you to like, if you financially can and physically can and want to be there, like go and be there, right? And if you can't for some reason or don't want to for some reason, you still might benefit from taking a couple days off just to process, even if you don't physically go anywhere. My mom died a few years ago, and I did tell the team just because I felt it was important for them to know like that I was going through something and I may be fine, but I also may not be on some days because grief is like that. And so I think that it would be wise to tell your manager or your HR because you may be fine right now, but you may not be tomorrow. And that's just the whirlwind of grief. And you can't unfortunately predict it. And even if you didn't mention if you were close to her or not, but I don't really think it matters. Like this is a really important relationship regardless, and there will be some grieving to do. And it may happen now or it may happen in 3 weeks, but I would want someone to know so that I could be supported at work. I would also want to know like kind of how they respond as a workplace when
Mm-hmm.
something like this happens, even though it's a new job. Like I think being transparent is always going to be beneficial for you in the long run too.
Yeah.
So
If any type of employer is going to give you a hard time over needing, like, I think even legally you're entitled to some stupidly low number of days, but like, there's nothing they can even do. They can't deny you bereavement leave. So if you need time
is
to
that a
process,
Canadian thing?
it's not in the States too.
I don't think
Oh my God,
so.
you live in the third world.
Yeah. Like, I don't think that there is a mandatory bereavement.
I mean, not
Most
mandatory, but
companies,
it's like they can you can take it without getting penalized. Here, anyway.
I would need to look that up. I don't
Wow.
know the answer to that. I don't want to speak to. So in Canada, that's the thing. I
Yeah.
don't know. God bless you. If that's a thing in the US, but most companies do offer some sort of bereavement. So you should look into that policy at your
Yeah.
organization too.
The US has no federal bereavement leave policy. Wow.
Yeah. Sounded about
Cold.
right.
In
No
Canada, you're
federal
entitled up to
bereavement,
3 days.
no federal parental leave. Nothing. We got nothing.
Yikes.
Welcome to America. This is
You have good
America.
pickles, so.
That's about it.
Yeah.
All right. Next story. Do I have any hope to change my career after having a baby? How do people find the time? So I'm 38 with a bachelor's in a BA degree from a well-regarded college. But since I pursued the arts after graduating, my work experience is all over the place. I've worked in tourism, hospitality, customer service, retail, early childhood education. Before I got pregnant, I was in a grad program for design, hoping to get into user experience. Now I have a wonderful, almost 1-year-old, but absolutely no time or energy. I'm moving to a new country soon, so I'll need to study the language and also hoping to pursue the UX through some avenue. But even then, how do I find the time? It feels daunting to break into a new career later in life. How do you find time to pursue career advancement as a new mom? So, as two moms, I thought we could address this for her because it's hard.
It is hard, but staying unhappy is harder.
Yeah, I think it's important to think about what you want long term. I mean, you say I'm 38, and I feel like you're saying that in like I'm 38.
Like, oh my
Like
gosh,
I
if you
don't
still
got
have
a lot of
half,
time
you could
left.
have half your work life ahead of you.
You can have half your work life ahead of you. So you definitely should. I love that you're pursuing something you're interested in, right? Like if it's user experience and design, like amazing. It's going to also be a blip in the grand scheme of your life if you have to spend
a year,
2 years, 3 years studying or getting like back into the swing of things to then maybe have a 20-year career in user experience, right? Like that's worth it to do what you want. I will say after having babies, it took me a long time, like mentally, emotionally to like find my ambition again and creativity. Like I always say, when Kit, my first child, came out of my body, I feel like she like sucked my creativity out with her. And I just needed to like give myself grace and kind of be on maintenance mode in terms of work for a while. And so if you're feeling like not like yourself still, I think that's really normal. Like you're only a year after giving birth and you're still postpartum, like you're still really a new mom. And so like I think it's okay if you also give yourself some time to like ease back into it. Like maybe you're starting to like go back to the classes or to do some career development, but you maybe don't need to compare yourself to 25-year-old you who had all the time in the world, all the ambition, all the energy. Like your life is in a different place right now, and just be kind to yourself knowing that like maybe you'll get back there or maybe you won't. Like literally it's taken me like 4 years to after my first birth I'm like 2 years right now after my second to really start feeling like not the old me, because she's gone. She's dead. She can't come to the phone right now. But like the new version of me, and finally like feeling good about that again. But I also don't regret like the time that I spent just easing back in or being on maintenance mode so that I could be more present with the babies, you know? So that's all I got.
Yeah, I think
It's
it's a little
hard.
bit different on my experience because I didn't have to work for the first year after my kids were born, both of them. So they were both a year before I went back to the workplace. I did a career swap when Oakley was 18 months and I like left
Mhm.
the career that I had worked 15 years at. So that was already very challenging. I actually found personally, and this is like, I think I had the polar opposite experience of you. When my kids were young, I perform better when everything is chaotic. So it was easier for me to lean into that chaotic energy and just keep going.
Mhm.
Now that things have kind of settled a bit and like we've found my kids are much older now, they found a groove, they don't need me as much anymore. Now I'm actually floundering a little bit more. So I guess my advice is to just lean into the energy that
You're
if you're more on in like Adrian, like where it's like you need to just you know close batten the hatches and just ride this out, that's great because now you're coming out of it. If you're
Mhm.
feeling like you want to just ride the wave and just like jump in with 2 feet and just like if it's hard, well, but what's one more thing I can do it, then do that because you never know like when the next shift is going to come and maybe that shift isn't like you might be thinking I think I could handle this right now but I'll probably be able to handle it better in a few years. Like I'm here to tell you that's not necessarily true. Like I could handle more then than I can now. So
Mhm.
you don't know what the next shift is coming and it might not be shifting the way that you think it's going to. So
Yeah, so like ride whatever wave
ride
you have, right?
yes, yeah. Honestly. And like but don't push yourself like
Yeah.
don't if it doesn't feel right, don't do it. Like if you don't push yourself past what your instincts are telling you, what your body is telling you to do. I'm saying more just like
Yeah, but if you
listen to your
feel a
body.
wave,
Yeah.
if you feel a wave, ride it. If you don't,
Yes.
that's
It's
okay.
fine.
We'll
Another
get
wave
another
will
one.
come. We just like,
Yes.
it just might not
Yes.
be a clean one.
Yeah. That's a good way to think about it, and just know that like everybody's different, and yeah, ride your own wave. And don't compare your wave to someone else's.
Yeah,
You
and
know, like
like
you just
don't just take
who
any
knows?
wave also as someone who has surfed exactly 3 times in my life. Like don't just take any wave either. Like wait for the good one because you always crash on the bad waves.
Yeah. What great surfing lesson advice coupled with
Yeah.
career
Yeah.
development. I love it. Okay. This one is similar but different. So what are lower stress jobs out there? Which is funny considering we just talked about a stress study in the workplace.
Mhm.
Um, so they said I'm a single parent of twins who are 6 years old. I find myself increasingly stressed about my job to a point that it's hurting my mental health and my relationship with my kids. I long for a low stress job which pays reasonably well and allows me to spend more time with my children. After all, they grow up so fast. Are there any careers or fields with lower stress and allows for good work life balance? Initially, when I read this, I feel like you're asking for three really hard things. It's almost
Yeah, you can't have them all in
like you're
one.
asking for, yeah, like can you, I think there's some saying of like you can pick two out of three, right?
Yeah.
Like you're asking for low stress, you're asking for high flexibility,
And
you're
higher
asking
pay.
for high pay.
Yeah, you can't have low stress, high flexibility, and high pay. I mean, I say you can't, but I'm sure maybe that exists, but it's not one that comes to top of mind.
Right.
And
Like
stress
don't,
isn't
that's a
always a bad thing.
unicorn.
Like I will say, like the work that we do, like it's stressful. That's the thing that we don't. I don't for me because
Mm-hmm.
of the dynamic. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's like a bad that needs to change. But I get high flexibility and I'm well compensated, and because of that, like parts of the job are stressful. You know.
Yeah. And I think it's also like it can be seasonal, but it can also be like being in a small business, you have more, well, in our company at least, I feel like I'm pretty transparent with people or you can see what's happening. So if there are periods of lower income, or if there are new projects that we have to launch, like that creates stress for people just by the nature of what we're
Right.
doing.
It's not a bad
Even
thing.
though,
I'm just,
yeah, it's like,
yeah.
even though maybe the day to day of serving our clients isn't stressful, that's not all we do. And that's on a small business, you have multiple roles that a lot of times you have to fill, or at least you're seeing. And so maybe small business isn't the route or field for you.
Don't join a startup.
But yeah, like, and yeah, don't join a startup in the tech space, but you will get high compensation in a lot of those roles, right? But you're going to have higher stress. A lot of times these roles do have more flexibility when they're like either just more remote by nature. I would argue that like some tech startups don't have, like, they actually only peg one out of the three, you know, because a lot of them actually you're working like
Constantly.
round the clock whenever they need you, constant. Yeah. So I think you have to first prioritize these three. I would prioritize them, which is the most important, then what is second, and then what is third. And then I would look for a job that has at least 2 to 3 of those.
Yeah.
Your top 2 to 3, you know, like,
yeah.
Because I think if you're trying to get all 3, you're not really being clear on which one is most important to you. Like, is the lower stress the most important, even if you have to take a pay cut?
I would say, if I was looking at this, I would say you have to decide what's more important, high flexibility or low stress. And then you need to establish how much money you need to make, because like there's a line where that's not flexible. So like stress or flexibility, and then go find a job that has that plus pays enough for your bills.
Yep. Yeah. Because I mean, thinking about the study, right? Like, what was it? 77% of respondents said that work stress negatively impacted their physical health, right? So it's like, that's a lot of people. Like, so there's 25% of people that said it didn't. So what are those 25% of jobs? Or also know that like just some people are
I'm a high stress person.
Stress.
Like I am an anxious person, so I get stressed easily. Like,
right. Whereas James might have, like, your husband might have a job where other people would be stressed, but maybe he wouldn't. Yeah. Right. So it's like, it also, you need to also take into consideration
what stresses you out.
What stresses you out, and look for an industry that, or a job that maybe doesn't have those factors, right? Because what stresses you out is going to be very different than what stresses me out, or what stresses Emily out, or what stresses someone else out, right? And so I think it's really important to define that for yourself so that you can start searching in places that give you what you want. Like, do you want a job where you can just like shut it off at the end of the day? Like, for example, I would say like a lot of teachers, like they love teaching, right? And I love teaching, but I don't love teaching like
children,
preschool or like kindergartners, you know? Like that would be highly stressful for me. But for other people, like that's not highly stressful. And when they go home, maybe they can shut it off. Maybe I could shut it off, although I know that like teaching, like you got to do a lot of planning and all that as well. But like that, and you're probably low paid, so like that's probably not the industry you want to go into. But I'm just using it as an example of like that might be really fun for some people and it might be really stressful for other people. Like I see people doing things that I'm like, that would totally stress me out.
I think of like delivery, like Amazon drivers. Like for some people that's like their dream job, like just, and for other people driving is stressful.
Right.
So you can't take that job because driving stresses you out.
You'll be
you know,
stressed all day. Yeah. For someone else, they're like, what a dream. I like can be by myself. I can listen to my podcast. I can like just
I'm racing against my like, oh, the faster I get this done, you know, like it's like a competition all day. Like how fast can I be done for the day? You know? For some people that would just cause nothing but stress.
Right. The government seems to work really slowly, so that might be lower stress.
I don't know about that one.
I don't know either. That also might be very stressful and polarizing. And I think it just all really depends. I think you can work in, I think you have to prioritize. You got to get clear on what the financial number is, right? Because like also high paying to you might not be high paying to me, right? So what does that mean to you? And then start to look for something that suits your needs better. But I would say find it. And I don't want to say you can't find all three.
I'm sure it exists.
I think they're more rare, and it's just a harder thing to find.
And like, how much flexibility will compensate for stress? You know, like maybe you have a really stressful job, but you only work. You have so that makes it easy. You know what I mean? You just have to do some more digging, some more reflection.
Yeah, like I think about like nurses' schedules. Like one of my best friends from college is a nurse, right? And she works like nights 3 days, and then she's off for 4 days. And like that schedule sounds like really rough.
A dream, I said.
Like it sounds a dream. I'm like really rough because like you're working nights, and then you got to like flip back into but you get paid more for nights, and she gets to, you know, create her own schedule. Like she gets paid really well. She gets 4 days off, you know, and probably a lot of like, but it's probably really stressful while she's there.
Right. Yeah.
And then she can shut it off when she's home. She's not thinking about probably most of the stuff that's going on at the hospital when she's not there.
Our friend is a firefighter, and we always joke. He always jokes he works 4 days a month, you know, like he works 2 24-hour shifts and he's off for 2 weeks. Like he has a farm because he's like, I have so much free time. He's like, but when I'm at work for like 2-3 days straight, and it's very, very stressful. But then I don't think he's really off for that long, but that's the joke.
For a long time.
He's off long enough that they have a farm and they raise animals. Like he has enough time to have hobbies and stuff. So,
you know, maybe I'll become a firefighter.
It looks like a really good way to stay fit.
Yeah, and stay fit. I just want you to know that I've had to call 911 like 2 times in the past 2 weeks.
What? Why am I only hearing about this now?
I don't know.
I don't like when you live a double life like this. You're supposed to tell me everything.
The first one, okay, I didn't call 911. I called the police station though, because I was getting on the highway and it was night time, and there was a guy just like walking onto the highway. I'm assuming he was probably homeless or you know,
needed
maybe
support.
a little bit out of his mind. He needed support, and so he was like wearing all black. He was a black man. I was like, it's dark out. This man, he's walking onto the on-ramp. Like, so I called the cops to go
support
check on him.
Yeah,
and they did. Then on Sunday this weekend, we were coming home from a birthday party, and an accident occurred right in front of us, and a SUV flipped over. It was flipping, and it landed like one car in front of us.
That's scary.
I almost had a heart attack, and Tyler was just sitting there like this. I was like, excuse me. Like, he's like, what was I going to do? I'm like, he worries about things when there's probably no problem. Like, one of his biggest worries is like the kids playing in the yard and a car like driving into our backyard, right? But when there's literally a car flipping in front of us, he's calm.
This is what I'm telling you about people who are worry or have high anxiety. You all think we can't handle stressful situations. I can.
Oh, he's prepared. He immediately got out of the car. Well, I called 911. He's helping them get out. Like there was people helping them get out of the car. They had flipped up. They were upside down.
Yeah.
I called the cops. They obviously came and helped. I don't think anyone was severely injured, but it was wild. And it also, 2 things number one, you don't have to be going very fast for your car to flip. Like when because they were making a left-hand turn, and someone was going straight, they probably should not have been making that left-hand turn.
Yeah.
They got hit and they flipped like multiple times. The other thing is I walk a lot, and I walk a lot with the kids and the strollers. And this is one of Tyler's big fears, is that like someone's going to run a light like that.
That happened to me.
Not be paying attention and run me right over as I'm walking the crosswalks.
That happened to me. I was like, they were like too
highly aware.
They were like less than a foot from hitting my stroller. Because like the stroller's in front of you too. That's the scariest part, right? They'd hit the kids before they'd hit me.
So scary. So now I'm like even more hyper aware of like being really aware of my surroundings on those crosswalks, and like standing not right at the corner when I'm waiting for the crosswalk, because I've also seen like a car run right into like the stop, you know, the walk signs.
Yeah.
So like if I was standing there, they would have just ran us over.
They would have.
Anyways, so that was
This is a great way to end the episode, just really positive and upbeat. This is a good episode though. Lots of support. Go listen to it all.
And we'll see you next Tuesday, everyone.
We'll
Hope
see
you
you
have a
next
great week.
Tuesday.
We'll see you next Tuesday.